Hello YouTube, RJ. Today we're going to take a look at moving a little more into capacitive reactance. Now if you watched the previous video where I explained AC, DC, what's going on with a capacitor, that's great. If not, I recommend you go back and look at that because that was a very basic, simple to understand, easing you what's going on in a capacitor. It basically covered why DC won't go through a capacitor, why AC will go through a capacitor, and how current really doesn't flow through a capacitor. With AC signals, it just appears to. So if you haven't caught that, if your viewer supports cards, I'll pop a card up here. You can click and go watch it and then jump right back here. This is going to be a continuation. We're going to go a little more into textbook learning in this video, where we're going to talk about how you know how much a capacitor is going to act as a resistor at a given frequency, the formula, how to calculate it, a little more understanding of what's going on, why this is happening, how a capacitor turns into a resistor at different frequencies. So how did we all get started with this? If you remember this little RF switch I was playing with, we were trying out and we were getting a lot of insertion loss at 5 megahertz where we were playing around. And I said, I thought I knew what was causing this. So we went to the data sheet for this device and we found that typically you have some DC blocking capacitors, some coupling capacitors on the inputs and outputs, which they do here on their little board. And we pulled the top off and we saw that. And in there, they had their typical diagram, which this was built off of. And it showed that if you were going to, this works into the gigahertz. And they were saying if you're working above 500 megahertz, they called for a 100 picofarad capacitor. And we checked these and they were 100 picofarad. So they were tuned for 500 megahertz and above, and here we are at 5 megahertz, much below that. So as I thought, these capacitors were blocking a lot of our signal and causing this massive insertion loss. In the data sheet, it mentioned that around 50 megahertz, they recommended about a 10 nanofarad capacitor, so much larger. So because we were working at a much lower frequency, I went to a 4.7 nanofarad capacitor, and lo and behold, the insertion loss almost disappeared, worked great, followed out with a data sheet of what kind of losses we'd expect, and everything was good in the world. So that next video about capacitors was supposed to ease into why that happened, what's going on, what causes capacitors to act this way. Now we're going to talk about how to calculate out the values of them, how much resistance you're going to get from them. And so we're going to jump over on the computer for this, and I'm going to jump in LT Spice, and we're going to look at a couple sample circuits to kind of try to get your mind working in the right direction. And then we'll look at calculating out and seeing how you know which size capacitor is going to do what to your circuit. So let me jump over on the computer and we'll pick up from there. Okay, so let's take a little look here on the computer. I fired up LT Spice, created a little circuit here. Basically what we have is we have a AC source putting out 10 volts through 2 resistors to ground. So this is going to be our load. We're going to consider this our 50 ohm load. We're looking at this resistor right here and we're thinking, okay, what effects does this resistor have on an AC signal based on its frequency? And the first thing to think about is we've created a voltage divider here. So if we look right here, we're going to see half of this voltage. We're going to go ahead and simulate that. It's going to sweep, and let's measure our voltage here. Let me make a couple quick changes here to get it to look the way we want it. And what you're going to find is from 100 hertz to 30 hertz, you're looking at, or 30 megahertz, I'm sorry, you're going to have no change. And the reason is because the value of these resistors are not going to change based on frequency. So resistors provide resistance to a circuit not based on frequency for the most part. Now these are perfect resistors we're simulating, and there is always a little parasitic capacitance and inductance in devices. So the resistors do display a little bit of frequency dependent at extremes, depending on which ones you're using. You know, some are have much less. You know, some of the small SMD can really get down there on low capacitance, low inductance, don't have much leads on them. So, but we're working in a perfect world at the moment. We're just going to think of everything as a perfect device. So a perfect resistor is totally independent of frequency. It doesn't care what frequency we're feeding it at. It's still going to do its job. It's going to provide the same 50 ohm resistance. So you're going to get a voltage divider. You're going to get half the voltage you're putting in. So my 10 volt AC is going to give me 5 volts at all these frequencies. That's a resistor. Now, why do we care about this? Well, because to understand what the capacitor does with a capacitive reactance, we have to understand a capacitor acts like a frequency-dependent resistor. Capacitive reactance creates resistance. It's actually reactance, but it acts like resistance. It's just a capacitor creates that, and it's variable based on frequency. So let me do this. Let me turn around now and close out that, and let's open up a different one. Let's open up this. Now, in this circuit, all we did was pull the resistor out and put a capacitor, a 100 picofarad capacitor in. And now we're sweeping from 20 hertz, or from 0.1 hertz, I'm sorry, basically DC. It can't go to 0. It won't let you do that. So this is basically DC to 500 megahertz. Now, what is interesting about the 100 picofarad and the 500 megahertz is this. If you remember back to the video where we were working with the switch, they had 100 picofarad capacitors on there. And if you also remember, the data sheet told us that if you were working 500 megahertz or above, use 100 picofarad. So we're going to be looking at how that circuit acted. Remember, we were putting signal in, getting big losses, right? So let's simulate this and let's see what happens. So we're going to see what kind of signal we get here. We're going to swap this around to get what we want out of it. I'm going to drop the phase. We don't need to worry about phasing. And what we're seeing here is we get basically nothing out of it until you get around 200 kilohertz before it comes off 0 volts. And then it starts ramping up. And as you go through 100, then by the time you get to about 10 megahertz, you're getting about 3 volts out of this 10 volt system. So you can see there's a lot of losses here. So imagine now we were at 5. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right about here. So let's just get this cursor going here. And let's get it up to about 5. If I remember right, that's what frequency we were looking at. So here is, try to get it close as I can. Let's call it that. So if we look here, we can see that we're only getting 1.57 out of a 10 volt signal. So yeah, massive losses. But now with that same setup, if we push it up close to the 500 megahertz, you'll see that we're getting 9.979, so almost our whole 10 volts. So this is why at high frequencies those capacitors would have worked perfectly fine, because the reactance would have been very low. The resistance, remember, capacitive reactance is measured in ohm, just like a resistor. It would have been quite low at these frequencies, but as soon as we were trying to use it down here, all of a sudden, wow, look at the losses. So what happened is, let me do this without changing anything. Let me make this the 4.7 nanofarad that I replaced it with. So let's just change that and simulate this again and see what happens. Put this back where it should be. Okay, now look. Yes, we're being blocked. Remember, capacitors don't like to send DC. So down here, no matter what capacitor we use, we're going to block. What changes is, depending on the size of the capacitor, it's at what frequency we start allowing signals through. And so when I move to a 4.7 nanofarad, much larger capacitor, you can see that I moved the frequency at which it would start allowing my signal through down quite a bit. I mean, here's 10 kilohertz here. Here's 100 kilohertz. Here's a megahertz. So, when we started talking about, let me get my cursor here, 5 megahertz like we were talking before, we were at 9, now we're at 9.9116 volts. I mean, we have very little loss now up here, very little loss by changing this capacitor. So this is where it comes in, and this is where the capacitor size matters. Now, how do we know how much reactance a capacitor has at a given frequency? Well, it's a formula. And so give me a minute to get set up, and we'll talk about the formula in which it takes to calculate what the resistance of this capacitor would be at a given frequency. Okay, so here's how we calculate out capacitive reactance. Now, how I do it is typically pull up an online calculator here and do it because it's very easy. But we'll go into the formula in just a minute. But let's look at what we were doing. We were looking at 5 megahertz, and we were looking at a 100 picofarad capacitor. And so if we calculate that, we'll see down here that equivalently the reactance is 318 ohms, quite a resistor. Yeah, a resistor of that value is going to reduce your signal dramatically, as I'm sure you realize. So what happens if we now change to a 4.7 nanofarad? We drop to 6.8 ohms. So of course, more of our signal will get through. We have less losses. How do we come up with these numbers? Well, here's the formula. XC is the abbreviation for your capacitive reactance, and it's equivalent to 1 over 2 pi FC, where F is your frequency, C is your capacitive in microfarads. So basically you take 2 times pi, 3.14, 6.28, and a bunch of extra numbers, and then you multiply that by the frequency by that, then you multiply that by the capacitance in microfarad, and you then have to divide that into 1, and you'll come out with these values. So that is what capacitive reactance is. It's a resistance that happens in a capacitor when you pass a varying signal, an AC signal, through it. It's the resistance that it creates. And we use XC, we use the capacitive reactance to help calculate the impedance of the circuit, because each capacitor is going to have XC, each resistor is going to have resistance. You can probably have some inductors in there. And so we have to calculate the inductive reactance also, very similar. And then with all of that, we can calculate the actual impedance of the circuit to know actually what the signal will look like, how much resistance to the signal we're going to see at a given frequency. So it's a very important thing when you're talking about radios and such. Why is it so important? Well, let me drop back over to LT Spice, and I'm going to show you that it's one of the more important things working on radios is understanding this relationship. Okay, so the reason that understanding capacitive reactance in a circuit is important is because when we deal with radios, we deal with filters a lot. And if you look at this schematic, it may have not popped in your head when you first looked at it, but what this really is a high-pass filter. That's why it doesn't pass things at the lower frequencies, but it passes things at the higher frequency. So we can rearrange this stuff to make it a different filter. So let's do this real quick. Grab this. Move it out of the way. Grab this. I'm going to rotate it around. I'll pop it in here. Take this. Get her hooked up. Let's see what happens now if we turn around and simulate that again. Oh, wait, what happened? Now our low frequencies pass with almost no restriction until we get up in the higher frequencies, and then we filter that. This is what controls your filters in your radios, is these values of these capacitors greatly control the frequency, the cutoff frequencies of the filter. So depending on which direction they're in, as far as whether they're going to ground and what orientation these are at, you filter different directions of the signal: low pass, high pass, band pass. And you often use multiple segments of these to create a tighter filter. If you look here, you see we roll off over a very long frequency. Well, we can help that. If we add additional stages to our filter, you'll hear it 4-pole, 5-pole. A pole is a stage. If we were to duplicate this over and over again, for example, if I was to take and let's go ahead and do this, drop another resistor in there. And let's go in and drop another capacitor in here. And let's make him the same value, 4.7 nanofarad. Make him 50 ohms. I got to throw me a ground in here. Wire it all up. Now, if I was to go up here and simulate this anew, come here and look here, we can see that, I wish there was a way I could compare the two because it scales the screen slightly different each one. But if we were to look at this, we would see that if we look at this, you'll probably notice that the signal's dropping off much quicker, steeper here, because I've added another section to my filter, another pole. And so when you hear 4-pole or 8-pole crystal filter or whatever, this is what we're doing. We're trying to make these filters cut off shorter and tighter. So that's why we keep adding poles to do this. This is it. I mean, this is where we really use the reactance of a capacitor and inductors, by the way. We're just not talking about them at the moment. They're just opposite of this. This is where we use them. We use them for designing filters, for handling passing signals between stages with our coupling capacitors. And so hopefully you've learned a little between the previous video and this video. Hopefully this kind of in your mind, you can picture what's going on a little better. So I hope this was helpful. Hope it was entertaining. Hope it was educational. And I hope you enjoyed it. And most of all, I hope to see you in the next video.